Good evening and welcome to our City Council meeting. You can tell who's really the most important person here. It's our city clerk. We can't do anything without her, and that's somewhat figurative, but actually more literal than figurative, I think. We were meeting as the redevelopment agency previous to this in a workshop. I don't know if they want to speak to that now or wait till the redevelopment agency agenda. Okay. So anyway, that's the reason we're slightly tardy and having to bring over all the equipment and so forth, and we'll get that report when it comes to the RDA portion of our meeting. So with that as a brief background, I would like to ask Madam Clerk for our roll call.
Councilman Ziprick.
Present.
Councilman Peterson. Present. Councilman Popescu.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tempore Rigsby.
Here.
Mayor Brower.
Here.
All present.
Our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance will be led tonight by Councilman Popescu.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to get together so we can discuss and make decisions about this wonderful city. We ask that you continue to bless the city of Loma and its residents. We thank you once again for the freedom we've been given. May we have a wonderful time. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I understand we do have at least one item to be added to the agenda. Is that right, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, and I will present it at the new business.
Okay. We will wait till we get to, or do you want to go ahead and add that right now? Okay. So there's some formalities and legal requirements for adding any item to the agenda, and so we'll ask our city attorney to help us with anything now, or do you want to defer everything till we literally get to new business?
Well, we have an item on our agenda, items to be added or deleted, and that's where we actually add the item to the agenda. City manager is correct that we'll actually address the item later on in the agenda under new business. But the item to be added is before you. It is resolution number R-2010-07, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Loma Linda, State of California, approving the application for grant funds for community-based transportation planning along Mountain View Avenue at Interstate 10 Freeway Interchange. As the staff report before you indicates, the city was just notified this morning that the IVDA is seeking joint funding. For that, they're requesting that the city take the lead on applying. The application is due April 1st of this year before our next meeting, and that is why you can make the two necessary findings. One, that there's a need for immediate action, and that the need for the action came to the attention of the city after the posting of the agenda. So the motion would be to add this item to the agenda with those findings.
Second. The item has been moved and seconded to be added to the agenda based on those findings. Any further discussion to add this to our agenda? Hearing none, any opposed to adding this to the agenda? We have a unanimous vote to add this agenda, and we will add that and consider it when it's time for new business. Next, there is no other items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Thank you. This brings us to oral reports from the public of any non-agendaized item. I do have one slip from Mr. Warden and the AQMD, and has some information on, looks like a lawnmower here, and must be an electric one, I presume, or something.
Yes, sir.
That's exciting.
Councilmember Peterson would not allow anything but. Good evening, Todd Warden from the South Coast AQMD. I am honored to be here. It's always great to be in the city of Loma Linda. Just a brief comments. I want to thank the city for running on your TV channel, State of the Air. It's a little video that's running 10-minute segments that your residents will be seeing on your cable channel. Essentially a 10-minute primer on air quality issues in Southern California. Simplifies it down to ordinary understanding, and it's not so technical, which most of our discussions typically are. And we appreciate you running that, and I'm actually here just to say thank you. While I'm here, I want to bring up a couple other items. The AQMD has a permit holiday. We are literally, bless you, we literally are having a permit holiday. Any permits that folks should have had, city equipment should have had from the AQMD, no harm, no foul. Come to the Air District, pull a permit. Doesn't matter if it's been running for years. Pull that permit, and we'll get the equipment registered. But there will be no fees, no fines, and no punitive actions on those pieces of equipment. That goes for small businesses as well. While we're here, we have the lawnmower. This is a program that the Air District does every year. You bring us your old lawnmower. We'll give you a new battery-powered lawnmower for $100 or $160 for this model, which is 19 inches. And this is taking 40 cars off the road. This is essentially just a battery and a blade. The Air District has no authority over mowers or blowers, but what we do is you bring us your old mower. We'll give you the new battery-powered model. Allows us to reduce pollution from that source and allow pollution from other sources in the Air District. It's a neat program. We also do blowers for the commercial gardeners and for your city maintenance crews in the summer for their 2-stroke blowers. We'll exchange that for a 4-stroke blower. Thank you very much. May I answer any questions? Sorry, AQMD, www.aqmd.gov. Registration starts April 21st. Go ahead, Councilmember.
What is the chemistry of the battery?
This is a basic lead battery, old
Okay.
technology.
So you can recharge it and it doesn't go dead.
Right. Batteries are warranted for 2 years. They are, I've had one for 5 that's still good. And it runs about an hour and a half. And we do about 4,000 mowers a year, so residents are encouraged to get on that as quick as possible. Yes, sir.
I'd like to just say that probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I went to electric more from my small patch of grass. I would never go back to a gas mower again. I mean, it's just so much easier to use. There's less maintenance. There's less trouble. It just
Always starts. Never
no
have to turn it
comparison.
up.
I'd never go to a gas mower again.
Now, another question about where you actually take your old lawnmower for exchanging into this model.
What we do is we do essentially 2 lawnmower exchanges in each of the respective counties for the South Coast AQMD. Quake Stadium, Orange Show Fairgrounds will probably be the San Bernardino exchanges. We don't have those locations just yet, but once we do, folks will register. They have to make that appointment. They will bring us their old mower and whatever size they decide, and then we will exchange that. Ecology Auto Wrecking takes those, recycles them, and we're essentially taking 4,000 to 5,000 mowers off the road this year.
How soon do you think that will occur?
Usually have that right about within a week or 2.
Of today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very much.
I appreciate your time.
Any other items from the public that aren't on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to next item. Conflict of interest is listed. Each individual will address that as necessary. Under our scheduled and related items, the first one is a public hearing, and this relates to a conditional use permit. Again, conditional use permit, as the name says, there are conditions for certain approvals, and there are time periods as well as conditions for that approval. And we have reached a point where action needs to be taken based on those time elements. So I will ask Ms. Woldruff, Community Development, to present this item, please.
The conditional use permit, number 0802, is at this point ready for a time extension, and as you can see, the number is number 2010-12. It is for a 100-room hotel. Formerly, it was known as the Holiday Inn project. At this point, it is still a hotel project, but we're not looking for a Holiday Inn. The existing setting is 2.4 acre site on the south side of Redlands Boulevard, just east of Anderson Street. There are 3 existing buildings on the site, and part of the project is requesting demolition of those buildings. The lot itself is approximately 350 feet by 300 feet. It's in a commercial area to the north, west, east, and then residential to the south. This is the site as it exists today. Site plan for the hotel project. You can see the footprint of the hotel building itself. The hotel was approved for 109 rooms, 4 stories tall, a 2,000 square foot restaurant with meeting space, and serves alcohol. Does not have a bar area though. Would have a pool and a spa, and 120 parking spaces and a 6-foot perimeter wall. This is a basic floor plan of the first floor. Elevations. And the landscape plan, which is a little bit easier to look at in terms of depicting how the site will look from an aerial view. The project, when it was approved, January 13th of 2009, it was consistent with the general plan that was adopted in May 26, 2009. Sorry about the 2010, that was me. It does meet code requirements. The Planning Commission reviewed it, the extension of time request on the 17th of February, and recommended approval to the City Council. Project proposal has not changed, other than at this point the Holiday Inn is no longer associated with the project. Back in January 13th of 2009, the City Council adopted a mitigated negative declaration for the project under the California Environmental Quality Act, and it is still sufficient, and further environmental review is not required. Plan check and permit and development impact fees and future transit occupancy fees would all be forthcoming for this project if it once it is submitted for building. So, staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of the 1-year extension of time, and it has specific dates for the recommendation that are in the staff report, and I think it's January 13th of 2010 to January 12th of 2011. Any questions or comments from the council? The property owner is here if you have any questions of the project as well.
Just one question, remind me, how many times can they get an extension, and how long could it go before?
There is no subdivision map associated with this project, and for that reason they are only eligible under our code for a 1-year extension. And as part of the development code update, that is something that we would like to change, just so that in economic times like these we're able to keep projects alive and try to assist applicants in getting them built someday. So you will be seeing a proposal from staff as part of the development code update to retroactively allow projects to have maybe 1 to 2 years additional.
So at the moment, the way it stands,
At the moment, they only
they
have
have
1
one more
year.
year, and they have to come back with a brand new project.
Brand new project. Yes, sir.
Was there a cost associated with extending it?
There is a application fee, just it's a fraction of what the actual
So it's
CUP fee
limited
is.
then, okay.
Yeah, yeah, but the application for an extension of time still is a discretionary permit, and that's why you received the brick of paperwork, because you still have to have all of the original documents in front of you in order to make that decision.
Any further questions for Mr. Woldruff from council? If not, thank you. Would the property owner wish to make any comments at this time? Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. I will formally open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone that would like to address this item in the public hearing session? Boy, everybody quiet tonight. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and be open to action or further discussion on this item.
I move. Second, I guess.
So we have a motion, as I understand it, to grant the time extension with the findings as listed, and a second. I hear from Councilman Popescu, if that's correct. Any further discussion or comments from council? If not, guess we're ready to vote. Any opposed to this time extension and extension of the conditional use permit as listed on our agenda? Hearing no objections, that is 5 votes in the affirmative for approving this extension.
Guess I would have one comment. Since we don't have the Holiday Inn, maybe we can change it to the Marriott or the Hyatt.
It certainly looks like a project that I think all of us would like to see succeed, but no surprise in these times of obstacles that are out there. Item number 2, we have a proposal for a small amount of some seed money to help with a historical fair that's coming up, and for those of you that have paid attention to previous city council meetings, Mr. Shipp has provided us with some exciting, I think, tidbits related to an event coming up in May, and I would like to, since Ms. Woldruff's at the podium, ask her to start this item, and then I will invite him to give us an update and so forth on any additional information.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I guess I should ask the city attorney on this. I'm part of the board of the Parks and Historical Society, and they are part of this, so I'm wondering, in the excess of caution, I'm probably going to go ahead and just step down, since they are also, although they're a nonprofit, they're a co-applicant. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, with the nonprofit situation, it may not be necessary, but if you're more comfortable with that, that's fine.
Okay.
Ms. Woldruff?
The request before you is from the Historical Commission, and they are requesting assistance with the 7th Annual History Fair, and you all have flyers in front of you that Mr. Shipp provided for you this evening. This is a special history fair for Loma Linda and for the San Bernardino Valley. It is the bicentennial of the San Bernardino Valley, and so the Historical Commission and the Historical and Parks Society are looking to make this into a very special celebration. And at this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Shipp to come up and tell you about it and what the money would be used for should it be granted by the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for giving me another chance to come back and talk about this bicentennial. You may recall the presentation I made in January, and I think you know the basic details of what we're celebrating. It was 200 years ago this May that missionaries from the San Gabriel Mission arrived in our valley and chose to rename it San Bernardino. And so we're celebrating that because we believe that that event took place in what is now Loma Linda on Mission Road. One of the key components of this is an unveiling of our city's Heritage Park. And I think budget-wise, the sticking point for our committees is that we have tentatively invited a group of Native Americans to bring an educational Native American village, which is very authentic in construction, along with themselves as teachers and docents, to show history, arts, crafts, and lifestyle of the people who lived here prior to 1810 and continue to live here now, but to show what life was like before the arrival of Europeans. We have an application to San Manuel Band of Mission Indians for a grant to help with the fair. We don't know if that will be honored or in what amount. I talked with a representative of the tribe today, and our application is with them. It has not gone to tribal council yet, so we don't know. In the event that we don't get their grant, we simply don't have the money to pay for this Journeys to the Past educational program. It costs $2,000 to bring their trucks with the village and all of the things that they bring from San Juan Capistrano. And we're very excited about having them come. We want to have them come, but it's still tentative because we know that without extra money beyond what we're hoping to raise in ticket sales, there's just no way to cover it. This is the first time that we've attempted to do anything that costs the city or anyone else any money. The fair itself is free. All of the events will be free except for the luncheon that day, and we're really only covering the cost of food with ticket sales. So we're coming to you with a sort of sliding request. The sliding part is $2,000 from the city of Loma Linda would help to cover the cost of that particular exhibit for the History Fair Bicentennial Day. More than that, if it is within your wishes to do that, would allow us to ramp up advertising, printing, and do a better job of a number of things, and perhaps not have to scrounge quite so hard to get private donations. We anticipate some private donations anyway, and ticket sales for the luncheon. But we've been doing this for 6 years, and there's never been any money changing hands. But this year we're doing something a little special because of the bicentennial. So we come to you begging for some help to make sure that we get everything into this celebration that we really want to do, and to turn it into something that the whole valley can come to. We're inviting all of the historical societies and interest groups from around the valley to come and celebrate with us. We certainly would like all of you to be there and join. We have a number of confirmed speakers for the day and entertainment, and it will be a fantastic day. But we just need your help in some amount to help us guarantee that we can put on the kind of program that we want to do.
Mr. Schiff, correct me if I'm wrong, but a bicentennial or a 200-year celebration happens only once.
In my lifetime, yes, certainly.
Just once.
Yes. And
well,
it's important to us. Yep.
We'll let those definitions be clear. I think this is a really exciting event, and really appreciate the efforts and the planning and the vision that you've had to stake this idea out there. And I think your request is certainly very legitimate, and I know you're being extremely careful with the money, and that's always an important consideration. Again, that's my opinion, and looking to
I'll move the request.
council move the request for appropriation up to $5,000 for this event. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Yes, Mr. City Manager.
I want to make sure that under financial impact, right now, this money is not budgeted
Yep.
anywhere. So if you approve, that means you approve me to appropriate from a general fund reserve to pay for this.
That was part of my motion.
Part of the motion, part of the second.
What are the possibilities of RDA funding being used?
It's up to you. If you approve, I'm okay with it. Yes, sir.
Could we approve this with directions to the city manager to look at which option would be best for that funding. Do we have to decide which pot it literally comes out of tonight?
No,
Okay. If city attorney's happy with that, that's how I understood the motion.
The fact that it's not agendized on the RDA agenda.
but the chairman, I can take it back to the executive committee meeting if you wanted to.
Okay, we can arrange that, yeah.
Fine.
So, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion in approving this item? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous of the four of us at the dais, and Councilman Peterson has removed himself as possible conflict. Again, Ziprick, sorry, looking over. I just want to thank Mr. Shipp for all your efforts on this. Really, I think a fun thing. Just remind the 2 or 3 people that might actually be watching this tonight. This is Sunday, May 16th, and there will be more advertisements coming based on some of this funding.
Yes.
And do you want me to give out your phone number and email
Absolutely.
on here? Is that
Certainly.
okay? Again, Jim's been very kind to list a phone number you can bug him with, 796-9622, or his email, Jimmy, JIMMYSHIPP @AOL.com. And we'll get more of that in print so that it's easier for people to remember. But great, appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
And this is
Your
going to be
support means a lot to us. Thanks.
going to be a lot of fun and of interest. All right, this brings us to our consent calendar.
Second.
Consent calendar's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comments on the consent calendar?
One comment, number 5, which we've all been waiting for a long time. It's going to be exciting.
It's a big expense, but I think council has decided it's certainly important enough and long-lasting enough that something we're willing to bite off and chew a big expense like this and be worth it in the long term. All right, consent calendar's been moved and seconded. Any opposition to the consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, it's approved unanimously. Old business, anything under old business? All right. We, under new business, have again added an item with the findings that we previously noted, and I would like to ask our city manager to present this item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Caltrans has come up with the a grant program for community-based transportation planting grant programs, and this is for planting purposes only. And the grant funding is up to $300,000 per project. And I received a phone call. Well, I actually met with IVDA this morning, and they would like to apply for this grant to do a study for the interchange improvement at I-10 Freeway and Mountain View. But in the application, it turned out that the city, they cannot be a lead agency. So they request that the city of Loma Linda be a lead agency on this grant application. And the application does require that the city council approve the resolution to authorize the staff to apply for this funding. If we receive the funding, it requires 10% local match, of which we can split it with the IVDA. And that's in my report.
Any questions of Mr. Typet?
I'll move it.
Action's been moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Ziprick. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Yeah, it passes unanimously, and hopefully we'll be successful, so that sounds great. Reports of councilmen. Councilman Popescu.
I just wanted to talk about briefly, just a brief announcement so everybody's aware of kind of where we stand regarding red light cameras. Dr. Rigsby and myself proposed that we remove the red light cameras back in September. As many of you know, we failed to do so. We were in the minority. We could not get enough support on the council. Subsequently, we try to do everything we can to limit the amount of injury to our community, which we believe is significant. We have issued quite a few tickets the last 4 years to the tune of 30,000. That number continues to this day. I want to make sure that people understand that in the legislative process, you could only get things done when you have support. Unfortunately, we don't. But I'm still very concerned that we're continuing to hurt, I think, our community with these type of tickets. And I want to make sure that people understand the only way for us to take care of this is to get more support on the council. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. But however, we do have an election coming up, and they have an opportunity to change a few people in order for that to happen. I also want to make it real clear that I've been here for 2 years, and I can tell you a certain amount of certainty that the people who put these cameras in will tell you one thing and then do something else. Politicians are very good at agreeing with you when it comes down to elections, but after they get elected, they do something different. I truly believe this with all my heart, that if those particular people get reelected, these cameras are not coming down, they will be renewed, and they will continue. So I want to make sure the public understands that, because there's only so much Dr. Rigsby and I can do, but we need your help, and I think that's the only way the public is going to be able to deal with this. Thank you.
Councilman Ziprick.
Mayor, if I can respond briefly to my colleague. Ovi, as you heard me state, I do not support renewing the contract for the cameras. Do you question that?
Very much so.
On what basis?
On the fact that you have flip-flop before and you will do it again.
On what issue?
I will not enter a debate with you, but I'm very confident. I have dealt with city issues now for 5 years. I've gotten to know you pretty well. It's been very clear that when there's opportunities in which the government can make money, this is a cash cow for the state and county government. It's a cash cow. All they do is take money from the citizens and put it to the state. I haven't seen very much from you in attempting to control that cash cow. So I'm very confident that there's that risk.
Now, in your analysis, you have heard my comment that I do not support renewing the contract.
So Ziprick, you can say everything you want. I'm entitled to my opinion. Let the people decide.
All right. For the record, I have gone on record already, Ovi, that I do not support renewing the contract, and I think people ought to be aware of that. The situation has changed over the last few years, and one of the purposes of the camera originally going in as a program was to prevent injuries, and there was a great deal of concern on the council about that. But we've discussed it, and the problem with what you're proposing is we were to terminate the contract instantly right now. You are aware it would cost us probably $500,000.
That is outright false. That's the company that's the number of the company can. The company could have come up with $10 million, $20 million, or $20. They can come up with any number they want. I have looked at this contract with a number of attorneys. There's some serious issues with it. I believe we had plenty of reason to get out of it, and I think Red Flags would have thanked us for giving them an opportunity to get out of it. But no, I don't have the support. That's fine. I just want to make sure people are aware of that.
Do you have a source if we were to go ahead and terminate for the $500,000?
Once again, it wouldn't have cost $500,000. You keep repeating it if it's true. That's a number that someone put together. There's no truth to it. when I explain to the residents that sometimes you say things that don't mean anything, this is a perfect example. You keep repeating it if it's true. It is not true. That's a number that a company put on a piece of paper saying, please don't get out of this contract, otherwise we're going to turn off this cash cow we just created out of your city.
Ovi, you are aware it was in a regular staff report. It's not my number.
That does not mean that that's what we would have to pay. Just because in a staff report doesn't mean it's factual in the sense that that's what we're going to pay. That's the number that the company said. You want to get out of early? This is what we think we're entitled to. There's no evidence whatsoever that they could have earned that. They would have had to taken us to court. I don't believe they would have, but we didn't have support.
If they did take us to court, we did lose, do you have a solution where we could come up with that much money? I wouldn't have a problem if we were going to get out of it for $1,000, but we're not going to get out of it for $1,000. The contract ends on December 1. We've extended the yellow light to make the period that people have to get through as long as reasonably possible, and we have had a report that has decreased the number of tickets. Isn't that all true?
It's not only true, but I'm telling other municipalities that you can get a 90% reduction in your ticket rates by lengthening your yellow lights 1 second. And I'm getting a lot of positive response from them, and we may see this idea metastasize throughout the Inland Empire.
And we've all supported that. So what I don't follow, if you really believe we should go take the gamble on $500,000, that would be of interest to the community, because that is a risk we don't have to take. The contract will end. Contract will end of its own terms in a matter of a few months.
In the meantime, residents are being injured as far as I'm concerned, and I don't believe that, and we had an opportunity to do so a long time ago. 5 months as things dragged out because you continued it with Mr. Peterson. 5 months. Nevertheless, we wouldn't have gotten the votes anyway, but we tried.
Councilman Peterson.
There has been no evidence that I'm aware of presented to this council that would indicate that the company would let us off with any reasonable amount of money, number one. At least you say there is. You have never presented it to this council. And number two, you don't have a wonderful record at preventing lawsuits and large expenditures from this council to solve problems like that. You don't have a good record in that point. We just spent some hundreds of thousands of dollars getting out of a lawsuit that your group got us into to begin with. So I wouldn't pick your record to put in front of the public on that one.
Any other comments from council? Only other comment I had was related tangentially to red light cameras. I had a few people concerned with, as we all are, with burglaries and even, unfortunately, a few robberies on Redlands Boulevard. And had someone present the idea, wouldn't it be great if we lived in a gated community? And thought about that, and you really can't do it. But then the idea was brought up, how about a virtual gated community? We have the fortune or misfortune of having very limited access. Redlands Boulevard, Mountain View, and Anderson to the freeway, Barton east-west, and I guess maybe Beaumont. You could literally put non-speeding, non-red light cameras and be able to, in essence, have a virtual gated community. I don't know. It's found it an interesting idea. I have no position to push for or against. Obviously, there's always concerns, but just throw it out there for consideration. We can all maybe kick it around. Who knows?
The project on Oakwood, just to the west of Oakwood, about a year after they were built, and knowing that the fiber optics have gone in there, although not to the houses, actually requested made a request and talked to me about that, of putting in a virtual gate with the cameras and stuff that they would feel much more secure. And I thought that might be a good experiment on a small area to try that sometime. I think that would be a good idea. If I can make one other comment, I'm sure that all of you have been reading the papers lately and are excited about the fact that Redland School District is planning on opening the old Mission School again. And are probably also aware of the fact that if the two projects that we lost on Mission Road had gone in, we would have two brand new schools paid for by developers, a beautiful primary school and a beautiful middle school paid for developers would be on that site. But we lost those projects thanks to a group in town, and so now we will have
Thanks
the old
to the
Mission School
people.
open.
Thanks to the people, Floyd. the
Which
people.
really ought to be commercial property in that corner, and so we'll be living with that for a few years now.
Any other reports, Councilman?
I just want to make a quick comment in regards to the school. We met with a developer, I guess, last week, and whatever we're proposing there, there's actually enough development to help pay for the school. So there's no truth to the fact that we couldn't build a school. We can still build a school. It's a matter of where the district decides to put it. They're choosing to put it on a very busy corner. I'm very concerned about that. If any of you question me, please go by there at any time, and you'll see how much traffic there is. And if you think that's a good place to put your kids, then by golly, then that's where you want to send them. But if I were you, I'd be talking to the school board and looking at opportunities to put the school in a nice, quiet neighborhood. We have plenty of land that we as a city own. We're willing to give it to the school and work with them on that. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to do so.
All right, we will move on to our next item, reports of officers. And as somewhat of a segue into this item, I'm going to just give a few comments before actually get to the report that Chief Bender will give us. We've gone over this in multiple council sessions before, but seems to have been some obvious interest recently in the last few weeks since our last council meeting, again related to this item. So I'd just like to cover a couple of basic points. Councilman Peterson and I have been around probably longer than some think either of us should, but we've seen the medical response situation be somewhat of a problematic issue. When both of us came on council a number of years ago, we had response from our fire department to every call that involves basic medical support that they would give, basic medical care, and then we would count on the ambulance service that would respond for a transport to bring a paramedic for higher level of care and all the advanced life support that a paramedic could bring. The problem was, despite numerous efforts, the ambulance team with that paramedic would often not respond as quickly as our fire department, and sometimes that lag time would be a number of minutes. And obviously, if you're in serious need of medical aid, none of us in this community needs to explain the importance of not getting proper response, especially in a city that prides itself on medical care. Numerous options were explored. How can we do this? How can we afford to pay for better service? Because we want first-rate service. A number of us, including myself, thought, is there some way we could get the ambulance service to give us better service, station an ambulance in the city, do whatever to get that paramedic here sooner. Tried numerous efforts, were never able to make any agreement or a satisfactory arrangement that seemed to work. Then the council a number of years ago finally decided that there was no other option to provide that first-rate service without having the paramedics incorporated, as part of our fire department. We knew this was going to be a substantial increase in costs. There's just no way you can provide first-rate service without costs. You can't get first-rate service for free. So we entered into it. Obviously, significant costs in the hundreds of thousands shortly thereafter per year. We knew that. We were willing to do that. We postponed, as a council, I think, the hard decisions of how to pay for it when times were good. We were able to make up for that additional cost, but with times economically turning tougher, we, over the last couple of years, have looked at options how to pay for some of these increased costs to provide this first-rate service. When we looked at our budget last year for the current fiscal year we're in, starting July 1st, this council looked very carefully in making sure that we are not going to get our city's finances into the position that a number of our surrounding cities have gotten them into. And you can read every day in the paper what's going on. I think today's paper said City of Colton projects their reserves will be gone. They'll have no money in their general fund by end of June, if I recall correctly. We targeted to keep our general fund reserves in a conservative range of several $1 million that we would have if we truly have that emergency, the big earthquake, the whatever that we don't anticipate. We're not going to drain our reserves down to nothing. What did we do last year? Again, everyone pitched in across the board, from management to council to employees, took a 5% cut across the board. Yes, I think many of us on the bandwagon, government could cut more, they should cut more, etc. That's another discussion that I think we all can have. However, we have to operate as a city based on what the market is out there currently. If we slashed payment to everyone across the board, we would not have best quality of workers or care. I think that's self-evident. So I again would like to emphasize there were cuts made when most other cities did not choose to make those or weren't willing to, and the employees were willing to, and management and city council. In conjunction with that, though, we did feel that it was appropriate to increase revenues in one specific area with the users. Again, sorry to draw this out, but very briefly, state law does provide that paramedics and the ambulance service that they provide, they can bill very substantial amounts with that right, and insurance typically covers and picks that up, but we provide a lot of the same service with no ability to provide charges to various insurers, etc. So last year, spent a lot of time, decided that at least it made sense to recoup some of those costs and bill various insurers and government agencies that we can recover some of those costs without just letting that money evaporate. So in a very brief nutshell, that's a little bit of the evolution of where we've gotten with those fees, and I think it's important to at least keep that in mind. I know no one's ever happy with new fees, new taxes, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to personally quibble, whatever you want to term it, but it's technically, I think, not a tax, but, hey, whatever you want to call it. So I just want to lay that on the table, how we've gotten to where we are today. With that as a brief background, again, this isn't something that Chief Bender dreamed up overnight or even over years. This is something this council, every one of us sitting here voted to do about over a year ago, and now we're implementing that. With that long-winded introduction, I will turn things over for a report to Chief Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just along with your history there, I had done just some review previous to my time here where the discussion had been, and you're right, that dialogue about how can the city be somewhat reimbursed for the health care services the paramedics delivered was talked about in 2001, 2005, and no action at those times. When I came, our past city manager, again, asked me to research the possibilities. We conducted some analysis locally. How did other local governments achieve that support of those services? And typically what we found were some very dedicated paramedic taxes to utility users taxes to fees for the service and subscription. That's kind of a stock program that's broadly known as fire med or fire medical. And when all those options were brought back, the council felt like really the most palatable option was a version of fire medical, one that focused on really the insurers and the end users rather than necessarily a broad-based tax. At that point, we moved forward. We did bring kind of the stock fire medical program with a few adjustments. Our council had received some comments from our community about some, I think, disproportionate using of the services by for-profit businesses. So one of the adjustments we have is that's made up some of the residential care facilities that subscriptions on a per bed basis, and as well as the care facilities in general are on a per bed basis, and the goal there was somewhat balance out that possible disproportionate consuming of that service. We also added what isn't necessarily in most programs is a non-resident, and that was because some of the council's concern of many people who frequent our town as students, employees, volunteers, or patients that they'd like to extend that, so that was added as well. The other addition that we had asked the council and the council supported was a one-time exemption of the direct charges in a case where we found a resident that simply was totally unaware of the program. So the council supported those alterations, and we've now moved forward. I think some of the media storm was somewhat created with some chasing of some headlines. I think there was some facts reported, but maybe a headline that got a lot of attention, and we've been speaking to the media throughout the last week, and some of the reports that came out were really more down the lines of it will cost you to call 911 in Loma Linda, where that is completely not the case. It is only, again, for that emergency medical services that are delivered. So we spent actually a lot of time talking to as many residents as we could who are calling in, maybe a little confused based on the headlines they were hearing. I would say the good news is of those residents that we've talked to, and when we actually can explain and educate, there's actually quite a bit of support. We are up to approximately 340 or 50 subscribers over the last 2 weeks. So I think that's good news. We are moving forward. There's lots of different nuances and questions and lots of different scenarios that can be created, so we're doing our best to administer as consistently and fairly to the structure that we have. I'd say the amount of phone calls is certainly starting to diminish to just, I think, hopefully what will be a consistent normal pace from here forward. But again, to this point, we've had 350 people subscribe to the program. The finance department will be invoicing. One of the questions we're getting is concerned that they haven't actually paid anything. Am I in? And yes, if you've applied and we've put you in the system, you will be receiving an invoice for that subscription here in the next couple of weeks. So anyone who is subscribed to that is in the system and will receive an invoice for payment at a later time. And I'm sure there may be some other questions that you all have had through the week, but it's my report for now.
Thank you.
Whenever anything like this comes up, I like to put things in perspective. I always try to do that when I teach statistics. If gasoline goes up 2 cents a gallon, well, it goes up 2 cents a gallon. I pay it. I don't make a demonstration. I don't call the president. I don't call the governor. I just pay it. And if gasoline goes up 2 cents a gallon, that's going to cost me a lot more than $48 a year. I just pay it. No grumbling. We just pay it. And mind you, none of that money stays in Loma Linda, not very much of it. And most of it doesn't even stay in this country when gasoline goes up 2 cents a gallon. Every dime of this money right here stays right here in this city. Every dime of it. Put it in perspective.
I have a slip from, sorry if I mispronounce this, Ken Jeske. Yes. Please feel free to come to the podium and address us so everyone can hear.
My name is Ken Jeske, and I live at 25526 Redlands Boulevard, Loma Linda. I've been a resident for 39 years. I attended, you had a representative, Chief, at the Emeritus Retirement Community on Van Leuven, where my mom is a resident. She's been a resident about 5 years. There's a lot of questions from the residents there on, they had contacted their large insurance companies of whether the insurance company would cover the $300 or $400, and none of the insurance companies of the residents that had called their insurance company knew anything about it or could explain whether their insurance company would cover the cost. I, that same day, being a resident here in the community, asked a question. My insurance is the VA medical insurance. That is the only insurance I have. So does that mean you are going to bill the federal government to cover? That's the only insurance I have available to myself. And they could not answer that. Said that question has come up before. So my insurance company is the Veterans Administration. So are you going to send a bill to the federal government?
Those are good questions.
A little bit of clarity on that. Yes, when there's emergency medical calls, VA gets billed for that, and they have reimbursement rates with the private ambulance provider. In this instance, the answer we were given is that there would be coverage for the serviceman or the VA, the veteran, if it was a service-related injury. Now, I'm not sure how the VA actually works out those details in their review, but that was the answer from the VA system on how they approach emergency medical services billing.
And just to add a couple of items related to this, certainly what I believe is the largest private insurer in town that a number of us are covered by does have reimbursement for this type of charge. Secondly, it is true with the new program, there definitely are some kinks. We haven't figured out all the issues, and we have strongly indicated that will not pursue billing with anyone with financial hardships, and that's, I think, very clear. And then the third issue, just to comment again, there are so many Byzantine ways that it seems like billing for medical issues have developed. I think a lot of you are familiar. There are some larger cities, Southern California, run their own ambulance services, others that don't. Somehow the way younger cities and smaller cities like us developed. We didn't have those ambulance services back however many years ago when we tried to explore providing that service. State law, by the time we explored that option, said we couldn't do it, and we had to let these other outside agencies do it that some of us feel charge, very, very large fees that we could provide the service for a smaller fee, but that's the way state law is. We can't change it. So there's all those issues that do seem to come up. Next card I have is from Nanette Gallagher. Please come forward to the podium. I have your address. You don't need to mention it. If you don't choose, you can. If you choose, that's your choice.
It's Nivette Gallegos, and that is the address I work at. I work for the facility that Mr. Jeski's mother resides. We have 140 residents, and my executive director is under the questioning that if the building itself were to pay for the fee, if there was some type of bulk discount, because we have 140 residents, and passing on that fee to all 140 residents, that's almost $7,000. So we want to see what we can do as a community to bring that price down for these residents. We have a resident that's 103 years old. So we want to try to not pass on such a high amount for them, especially if they're on a completely fixed income.
It certainly would be up to the council to entertain that question. Currently, for care facilities are like that, each apartment is identified as an individual address and certainly eligible for the $48 subscription. In this case, I think the owner or the business is entertaining the thought of covering all their residents or all the apartments or rooms within their facility. Currently, as the resolution is written, again, that would be a $48 subscription per room within their complex.
So your concerns we appreciate, and we will continue to look at, but as the chief mentioned, as the original language was passed and the billing structure set up, it would be, as he mentioned, it's always tough. Obviously, big facilities like yours, it's a big fee. The converse is the rest of taxpayers say, well, you're utilizing a service a lot more, but than any individual house. So something we will continue to look at. I don't have an instant answer beyond that tonight.
Can I ask?
Sure.
We had asked the fire department to come and maybe educate our residents, the ones that are more apt to understand, the fee. We had 2 ladies from the fire department come to our community, and they could not answer their questions. None of them. And she said that they were putting the thing on hold until after this meeting. So we had 75 residents with applications. I believe she's here in the room today. We had 75 people. I printed out applications, but no applications were filled out because we were under the assumption that it was on hold.
I would say that the assumption of being on hold was to deal with your facility on that question. Is that something the facility wants to cover? Would there be any further discussion about any of that discount? And so, yeah, there was a question there. No bill is going out to any of those residents within this last week for that service for that reason, because we understood there's some desire from the facility's perspective to cover their residents. Certainly, I didn't want to, and they had asked us if we could alleviate some of the concerns about them not wanting to call 911, and I had directed them certainly not to encourage every resident to fill out an application and be billed for the service if their business or the business was going to do that for the resident. Again, understanding there was lots of discussion and knowing this meeting was tonight, and certainly seeking any potential change in the program. At this point, I'm not hearing that's the case. That's why we certainly have worked with your complex in that fashion, and be anticipation that we would come back out directly after this meeting to say, yes, we are moving forward as it is written, or with any adjustments that are given in the program. So no one from your facility has received a bill. Again,
Tonight, this item is on the agenda as a report, unless the city attorney feels differently, which I doubt he will. There won't be any further action that we even can take to modify that, even if we wanted. So at this point in time, the fee structure as listed is in place, and we'll go forward. Obviously, there's possibility of anything changing future meetings, but at this point, that is not certainly feasible this evening. Councilman Peterson.
I just want to make sure that your questions have been answered. Are you clear on where you stand at the moment? That's important. You need to be clear.
I'm taking it as each individual resident needs to pay the $48 if their insurance company does not cover it, so that they won't acquire fees. We, as a community, if we want to list all the residents, then it's $48 per apartment to cover all the residents. There's no, at this point, not on hold. We just kind of put no billing forward yet.
We won't bill those residents during that.
Yeah, until this following week when you come back and explain it to them.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I needed to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you for that clarification. Councilman Ziprick.
Like everybody else, I've gotten a number of questions, and I'll throw some of them out. And Chief and I have had a chance to talk a little bit about this. One question I received is, if someone is not at fault in the incident and a call is made for them, will they still be billed? Because usually in insurance, sometimes there's a principle of the one that's at fault would be responsible, and that's one of the questions that has come up, because somebody has asked me, if, let's say I'm in an incident, an accident, and I'm not the one that caused the accident, am I still going to get charged?
Well, the bill is for the actual delivering of health care services. So any time that certainly we treat someone and there's a health record established, the person who's treated, or their insurance, or that certainly they would be, whether they were the cause of whatever incident, there isn't really a relation there. It's simply whoever the health care is delivered to, whoever is who would receive the bill.
Another question I received.
Before you go on.
Sure.
So if I'm clear, and I've got this question too. If there's a car accident on Redlands Boulevard and two people run into each other and there's a big smash up and you guys appear on the scene, because you came for the accident, if there's no health care delivered, there's no charge. Is that, I mean, you could be there, but if you don't deliver any health care, there's no charge. Is that correct?
That's true, and that happens. Yeah. And there would be no charge for that.
And just a second follow-up, again, say you're in that accident, heaven forbid, there are serious injuries, and let's say you're the one not at fault. Obviously, you're going to go to the hospital, and you're going to get charges from the hospital and physicians for their care. Eventually, the insurance companies are going to fight that out as to who finally pays it, but every entity from potentially the fire department, the ambulance, to the hospital, to physicians, et cetera, as I would understand it, would bill the person, because I don't know who else to charge initially, and then that's the role for insurance to hopefully cover as those things come along. But it is true, there's lots of nuances that are going to have to be clarified.
Another question is, if somebody is a subscriber, will their insurance still be billed?
Yeah, their insurance is billed for the service. The subscription is really in place to protect those whose insurance does not cover well. Again, we just the Loma Linda Risk Management, for example, who insures a number of our residents, they pay 100% of this fee. For that resident, that would not, certainly be as much of a concern.
So a resident like somebody covered by risk management probably then would not find it necessary to subscribe because they're covered 100%.
That's true. And then there's certainly insurances in between, all the way to the Medicare side, where there's very little coverage, if any at all, for this. So it's really that portion that the subscription is really critical for. And again, the subscriber, that would be the only reimbursement for the service. There would be no attempt for any additional out-of-pocket copays or anything like that.
Councilman Peterson.
Yeah, so then I think the people in town need to be clear that if their house catches on fire and they call 911 and the paramedics and the fire engines and all arrive at the scene, if nobody's hurt and there's no medical care given, they're not going to be charged $300 for the fire department showing up to put the fire out. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's not a cost for fire responses. Really, the focus was trying to bring certainly insurance dollars
it's the medical
to help support the services.
See, one of the questions, Councilmember Peterson, that came up, one of the brochures that we received last week shows 2 firefighters on a roof and says we're here 24/7. And I had a trial lawyer talk to me this morning and say that there's an impression for some of these programs, and he brought up Loma Linda's to me, that there could be an implication that fire services are covered because our brochure suggests it. And I understand the chief is not the one that picked this picture out.
Well, there's a whole package of them, and really when you see the whole package of it, it's very clear that it's demonstrating that all these services are delivered by your fire department. And when you read the language, it talks about the EMS. The point is probably fair, and that my feedback will make sure that any picture related to this program moving forward has a stronger emphasis on just the medical. If you include all the cards and posters and pictures together in the package that we looked at, it would be very clear as you pick one out at a time. Yes, I can see the correlation that might be made there.
Because the point that was made to me was that in a panic situation, if somebody has, say, a grease fire in their kitchen and they think they can handle it themselves and they don't want to get a charge because they're afraid, I haven't signed up, let me deal with it, I'll throw some baking soda on it, whatever. They might not think that they ought to call the fire department, and you could end up with a different situation than if they said, no, I need to call 911, get the fire department here. Because this particular picture says signed up today, there was a time, I believe, fire departments were for-profit entities. This is going back a couple hundred years, and they're fire companies. And it was brought up to me by an attorney who is a PI attorney, personal injury attorney, that could be a very interesting case if somebody had from our own city material an impression that this also covers fire. And so I was trying to think of a way to disabuse the public of that very, very clearly, since there is well, that's why I wanted to bring that one point up tonight, is to make it very clear to anybody watching that people can call the fire department for a fire call no matter what, because you don't want that impression getting otherwise.
And the council has also already asked us to follow up with some following information in mailer, and we will make sure that point is reemphasized in that information as well. Thank you.
Another point that was brought up is, for the first time, there are a lot of people that probably will hardly ever, if ever, call the paramedics. And we have the first time where if somebody signs up on the first time, they can then, with the first response for paramedics, I suppose they could sign up at that point. The suggestion's been made, and I've talked to a few people who've said, we wish that people, just because they're taxpayers, could get one call, and then after that, if they get a second call, then they're more of a frequent user, but they're sort of a basic, maybe taxpayer coverage, where you're already paying into the system. And that's what some people have said to me, is we are paying into the system. Wouldn't it be possible to allow a modification where the waivers for the first time, and after that, on the second time, then they can join the system. Because the point being that person, a lot of people are going to feel they have to sign up because they want to avoid the big fee. If their insurance is already being charged, there's sort of this little gap in there. What would be the possibility of allowing that? That would be a modification, and I think that might satisfy most of the concerns of people, because a lot of people are going to say, you know what, I'm not being forced into buying it on the off chance sometime I'm going to get a call to the paramedics, or someone's going to call it in on me. That's another point people made, is somebody calls a call in for you and you didn't call, obviously you're going to get billed. Could we consider maybe modifying it that much and then start it on the second? Something to consider.
Well, I guess to that, you're right. Right now, our language reads that we have the ability for a one-time exemption to the direct charge upon enrollment. So you're right. That's how our exemption reads right now. That probably covers a lot of the people who might use the service once in their life. But programmatically, certainly what you're saying could happen. It's just a matter of the direction of the council as they would like us to operationalize the program. The other comment about if someone else calls for you, who will be charged, I guess I would relate that back to the previous example of the traffic collision. If someone misinterprets someone's need for service and responders arrive and there is no need for medical care, there would be no bill. It would only be if that person needed medical care. So, but again, programmatically, it's not something we could build into the program.
We could still charge insurance if we had a policy that we will attempt to bill insurance, but we will, because this is a different type of program where you have a subscription and you have an insurance component. And so my thought is, if the residents understood that on the first one we would waive it, truly waive it for everybody, and then on the second one we would give an opportunity to join. We'll go and build insurance anyway, but you give people a benefit for their being just simply a taxpayer. And that might take some pressure off people who say, I'm not sure if I should join or not. I feel like I have to. I'd rather not. This is a bad time economically. And I appreciate we're gainfully employed, but there are a lot of people out there who are struggling very, very hard. And it would be great if we did not hit one more must-do expense at this point. And I'm just wondering if that would be close enough to what we have now that might be appealing to the council. To bring it back, Nick.
So they would get 2 calls instead of 1 free.
Well, the second one, they would get billed if they didn't join at that point. Because right now, we have a waiver. But
Yes,
we would say you're truly waived on the first one, and then after that, you need to join up if on your second call you use the services of the paramedics.
Again, I think any idea is legitimate to discuss, but as far as any
We can't act tonight.
action, and that's up to any individual, and we can entertain that at a future agenda. But as of the moment, the fees are as they have been passed and established. And like any insurance, if you do feel you want to take the protection to avoid larger bills, if you're in that category, that will be an individual decision. And it's I don't think any of us relish ever increasing fees, but every time you reduce fees for someone, it means someone else will have to pick up some of those costs. But it's a fine balance. I have another another slip from Alan Gutschen. Sorry. Come forward, please, and address the council, if you would, please.
Is it necessary to give my address, or can I just say what's
No, I have it on the record, and that's satisfactory as long as we have it down on the record.
Okay, yeah, my name is Alan Gutchen. I live down at the KB Homes off Mission Road. And the first thing I want to address is the paramedic fee. Chief, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but your mailing lists excluded almost everybody on Mission Road in the new developments. And when I asked a member of your office, she said, you purchased a mailing list from the post office. Well, the post office, having been a former employee, I'm retired from them now, they're cannibalizing and reevaluating all the routes around here. So I think a lot of addresses were left off their list. But I did not receive any notice at all. And I had to go out of my way to call your office, which I have plenty of time. Don't think I don't have time. It's just a lot of people don't have time, and they're not going to be aware of how they're going to pay the $48 fee. But I signed up for it, and I think, I mean, it's a shame we're in this fiscal tightening time, but you know, unfortunately, some things are needed, and the paramedic fee is one of them, and I was more than happy to sign up for it. The other thing I wanted to address was the mission school. I don't know if any of you have really been down there to look at that decrepit, absolute collapsing, condemnable, absolutely horrid situation of that school, and Redlands Unified is going to renovate that wreck. There's no way they can renovate it. They can only renovate by bombing the thing. The only decent building in that place, it's Ovi and I talked on the phone about it. I always want to call it the Heinzen building. It's called something else. But there's one decent building at that school, and that building will hold about 400 kids. So I think what Redlands is going to do is they're going to slap the kids in that building. They're canning the adult schools, so of course nobody's going to have the advantages of anywhere local to get a vocational education at a minimal cost. But and isn't there anything the city council can do? I emailed every member of the city council, and Ovi was the only one who had any time to answer me back. Now, how much time would it have taken to reply and say, thank you for your concerns? And I found it very offensive. Everyone up here gets paid for being a member of the city council. And I know it's not very much, and I know you all have full-time jobs. Some of you have offices in the city of Redlands, which contributes to their tax base. Of course, that just happens to be where the school district is. But the point is it would have been nice just to get a thank you, or that I took a little time out of my day. Why couldn't you have taken a minute out of your day to just say thank you very much? And I'll remember when I go to the polls, trust me. And that's basically all I have to say.
Just a couple of points to respond. Thank you for your input. We've struggled ever since I've been on council with the issue of getting correct addresses in the eastern part of our city. There's a number of businesses and many residential addresses that have Redlands, even though they're in the city limits. We've gone to the postal authorities over and over and seem to be unable to ever get that corrected. That might be part of the problem. Number two, I do want to comment on the school board issue. Was it, I don't even know, I should know, I'm embarrassed. Is it 4-year terms that school board officials have? But you'll see the signs out there for whoever for school board. When do you ever hear a serious discussion of any policies or decisions that they make? Find out, and I, again, admit my ignorance. I don't know all the school board members, but boy, it's time for us as citizens to lobby them, say, we think it's inappropriate to try and rehabilitate, and I agree with your comments, a wreck of a building, and it's a wrong location. And the council has clearly indicated that to the chairman of the school board, but I think the more they hear from citizens, the more important that is. The third quick item, we talked about our last meeting. I think it is a little confusing on the subscriptions and the billing for the utility or for the paramedic fee. We talked about our next utility bill possibly having a checkbox that they could check if they want to add the subscription fee to their next utility bill. Are we still progressing on that? I think it would be a lot easier and clearer for a lot of people if that could be part of the utility bill.
What we planned to do was to have a little line on the utility bill that said if you're interested in call this number or go to our website and sign up for it.
There wouldn't be any way to just check the box, add the 48 to your payment, and be done with it? I don't know. It just seems like for me that would be the.
Then they have to put it on the envelopes and return it back to us. Instead, all you have to do is just go on the computer and sign up, or call us and we sign up for you.
I guess I'm still old-fashioned, send the check for my bill, so I just add it to my check, but I know a lot of people are paying online too, so I don't know, it just seems like we ought to have both ways for the Luddites among us and the more online way.
Also, just for clarification, that the emeritus was certainly an example of a group that I owe some reclarification to after tonight, but as I understand, direction is to move forward as outlined in the current resolution, and we will continue moving forward unless there's any further direction given by council at any future time.
Yeah, I think to be fair and to be clear on that issue, obviously things may change in the future, but there is nothing we can change tonight. We have voted, it's in force. You know, any individual can decide to wait and see what happens, but the program is in place and fees established, et cetera. So that is my understanding, just to be as clear on that as possible, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I forgot to bring up one other thing. I don't know if any of you are aware of it, but in the paper this morning, Redlands is going to build a brand new charter school. Now, isn't that amazing? Wonder what percentage of Loma Linda money is going to finance that school. But yet they don't have money to build a school that our city wants to donate land for. But all of a sudden, now they're going to build a brand new charter school. Isn't that incredible? Did any of you know about that?
Actually, there's a little bit of confusion there. They're not building the charter school. The charter school, in order to be established, has to apply with the school district, and they have to work under their charter. And the school district has to be very careful on how they proceed that. That particular charter school, there was another article in the paper you might have missed, is not being built, but it's actually going to be using existing buildings if it does open. It's an issue with full school districts to get involved with charter schools because school districts get money based on how many students they have within their system. And if kids start going to a charter school, that is less money that's going to the system. So the school district has to really be very careful in how they proceed in allowing charter schools to come into the system. So that's something for the school district to decide. But they're not building a new charter school. They'll be using an existing system.
Okay, I stand corrected. Is the city council going to take any stand on the elimination of high school busing?
We have not chosen to previously. Obviously, that's a potential consideration, but at this point we have not, and that's all I can say.
Are you talking about high school busing anywhere to any high school, or from one part of a district to another part, massive busing, or are you talking about any buses at all?
Redlands Unified,
they have buses.
Yes, starting next year is eliminating all busing for all high school students except for the special education and developmentally disabled, that stuff. But everybody else, all the other high school kids, there's going to be no busing at all, which means everyone from Loma Linda is going to have to drive to Redlands High School, which is going to probably put an average of 800 more cars in front of that school to pick up and drop off students.
I'd heard that they were considering it, I think because of the budget in the school district is getting so tight.
Oh yeah, sure, they're hurting.
So obviously we're facing huge.
I mean, the architect down at Mission Schools, Brett, is getting buttered real good off that renovation he's supposedly going to do, but he's not going to renovate those buildings. I already know it. They'll just throw everybody in that one building that's fit already, and Loma Linda parents will have to drive down there. That's 600 more cars twice a day down to Redlands Boulevard and California Street. You can't even handle what there is now.
Alan, as you probably know, there was a time we were hoping to have a restaurant on that corner, and it wouldn't have been a school. And that was something under consideration for years. There was hope to have a totally different use for that corner. And so it's very unfortunate that they're reconsidering or considering bringing a school back there. We'd hoped that was gone forever. That's going back 10 12 years.
Who's going to get stuck remodeling that whole intersection, Loma, Linda?
And Redlands.
Yeah, hopefully Redlands, And you know what I mean? We're fortunate enough to have Jarb for a city manager. He gets a lot done around here.
He does.
But, and thank you very much for the upcoming project on California Street and Mission Road. It'll be really nice. But, Redlands will sit on their hands and we don't have any money. That's all they ever say. I mean, I've lived in Loma Linda for 12 years in Redlands. We don't have any money. How can they say that? I mean, they have all this business development and malls going in and everything else, spec buildings and everything else, but they don't have any money. I mean, now I can understand it, but, thank goodness we live in a city that has good fiscal responsibility and not like Redlands.
Alan, I think I saw your name in the paper the other day on the Mission School
Yesterday.
issue. Yeah, and so I wanted to thank you for your comment there. If somehow I didn't get back to you on the other, I'm sorry. I tried to look at my emails, but
It didn't come to me there. I didn't get the...
but I saw you in the paper.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks. Sorry I had to come back up.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help on all
Oh,
that.
you're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to have comments on the paramedic medical program fees?
I just wanted to comment as a councilman on it.
Sure.
It's interesting. I've been on the council for 2 years, and I hardly hear from residents that often, but I've got to tell you, I heard quite a bit from the residents on this particular issue, and it was something I was actually afraid of, and when we brought it up a year ago, I wanted to make sure that people were made aware of. Obviously, we sure made aware of them, but after the fact, after we actually implemented it, rather than prior, so we can get input. But just a couple of quick observations, and I agree with our chief that a lot of the times there's confusion about the program, what it covers, who gets to pay for it, and all that. And a lot of the times the people who have those questions and those questions are answered, they actually realize that it's not what it appears to be. So I think it's good to know that we're able to educate people, and we have. I probably talked this week for at least 20 to 25 residents, actually not this week, in the last 2 weeks. And in answering some of those questions, a lot of them understand. Some of them don't. Some of them still feel that their taxes should cover it. And there's definitely some truth to that, but at the same time, the paramedic services have changed a great deal in the last 20 years or 30 years when the city first established itself. And we didn't want to raise fees for everybody, but rather for those who use it. However, I wanted to point out a couple of examples. I did have I talked to 3 residents, and all said that they have signed up for the program right away. Some of them, they might not ever use it, but they're concerned that they may have to. There was one particular resident that talked about the fact, I wasn't there, but she told someone else, and she said, "You bet I use it. I call those guys 7 times a year." Okay? Now, that's an example of someone who appreciates our fire department enough that they come to their house often, and that's great. We don't mind doing that, but at the same time, it does incur fees. There's a little bit of concern in the community about the cost of bringing a lot of fire trucks to some of these calls, and that's something the fire department is working on to try to streamline the process, so that may not be necessary for all the calls. So I just want to make sure the residents are aware of that. Thank you.
Councilman
Zipper. And I appreciate the comments you're picking up, because I'm hearing some of the same types of comments, and I appreciate where you have somebody like the example you heard from that has used it 7 times. That's definitely a frequent user, and that would be the type of person that anybody listening would say they definitely should be a subscriber. My thinking was just to maybe tweak the system enough to say that, look, we'll go ahead and bill insurance where we can. We may not be able to bill the federal government. I don't know. I think that's beyond our expertise tonight. But if we had somebody who the first time they used it didn't get billed, it's covered by being a citizen. But on the second call, they get the option of joining then, because they're becoming a frequent user, I figure, with the second time. Maybe that would alleviate the concerns of the residents that they're being forced to sign up right now, even if they're probably not going to use it, most of them. And I've talked to enough who said if you could even differentiate that much, that would make a difference to some of the ones I talked to. It's not a perfect answer, but it would differentiate between frequent and non-frequent users at some level other than 0 versus 1. Goes 1 to 2. Anyway, that's, I'm wondering if there any willingness on the part of the council to maybe ask staff to look at that and maybe clarify, along with clarifying some of the fire issues, because I know we're going to do some education on that, and that might alleviate some of the questions we have in the community. I'd like to support that if there's any support for that, and maybe do it as a united council to ask the staff to take a look at that. And we would, as I understand it, since we're still going to be billing insurance, the bulk of the receipts would still be brought in. We wouldn't be losing the majority of what we're going after. Anyway, that's where I would like to go.
Councilman Peterson?
Mr. Mayor, sorry to go back just a minute, but a few minutes ago at this council meeting, Councilman Ziprick and I were the target of a vicious attack by Mr. Popescu because we would not vote to eliminate the red light cameras. I would like to point out to the public, and maybe to Mr. Popescu, who can't seem to count, that Mr. Ziprick and I are a minority on this council. We have only 2 votes. We cannot block to do anything on this council. If the council wants to do it, we only have 2 votes. So, Mr. Popescu, you have to have 3 votes to get the job done. Go ahead and get them. You don't need our vote.
That's why if one of you lose, we get the majority on the red light cameras.
Guess I'll make my quick comment. The joy of literally and figuratively sometimes being in the middle. I very definitely have supported letting the contract run its course since this issue's been brought up. I do think Councilman Popescu, Mayor Pro Tem Rigsby have very forcefully brought the issue to the forefront, and they deserve credit for that. However, I am still concerned about potential for litigation of terminating the contract early. So I have been on that side of the camp on this one, and that's my opinion, and we'll leave it at that. Since we have brought this up, I was going to save, I did have one more slip and thought we had moved on past that. Was going to put it on open comments for redevelopment, but since it's come up, I have a slip from David Eigler on the red light camera issue. So since we have that opening, we might as well let you have your 3 minutes and go to it.
David Eigler, you have my address on file, and thank you, Mayor Brower and the council. Listening to Councilman Popescu's remarks during the Section K here, reports of councilmen, 2 things came to mind. One, a matter of clarification, and secondly, a point, I think, of correction. In terms of clarification, City Attorney Holdaway and Mayor Brower, can you tell me, is it appropriate to use this reports of councilman time as a time to engage in election campaigning? Is that an appropriate use of this section?
I will start the response, and City Attorney can obviously contribute. Reports of councilmen, with my understanding of all state law and so forth that governs this, I potentially could talk about, going out and spending the night looking at the full moon if I chose to, or any other council member. I'm trying to take it maybe to hyperbole, but to my understanding, there is no defined limit. That's up to each council member to talk about any issue, just like on the first part of the agenda, any items for the public that you may wish to address. Hey, if you got, don't like the color of your neighbor's
necktie,
fence or necktie or whatever, literally the only thing that is restricted is, I shouldn't say imagination, but again, to take it to hyperbole, to the best of my knowledge, there is no restrictions. We've even had, again, to take issue to the extreme, we've had discussions with legal counsel, and I'll let him expand on this. What if, there's something way beyond what we've ever heard here? What if there were, expletives and blah, 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 and under free speech, how far do you even go with that? So it's difficult, but to this point, getting back to the question, I know of no limits within any of those considerations, and I'll let the city attorney chime in and give his thoughts.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I do have a few thoughts on that, and
correct us all.
It's probably a matter where there could be some disagreement and some more strict interpretations, but ultimately it's for the chairman of the meeting to make some of these decisions as to whether or not discussion has gone beyond the scope of the agenda. The rule regarding the agenda under the Brown Act is that the agenda must reflect the items to be discussed or acted upon at the meeting, to the extent that a person who picks up the agenda can know in advance the topics and the actions that are contemplated during the course of the meeting. And that is why we're a little bit strict about taking any action on an item that's not in the agenda. But that rule also governs discussion of any item not on the agenda, and so that's where we sometimes have a little bit of a concern. One of the agenda items tonight obviously was added to the agenda under a specific rule that allows us to do that where there's a need for immediate action that came to the attention of the city after the agenda was posted. But that rule is fairly strict. It requires a heightened vote to take that action to place the new item on the agenda. Now, we do include in the agenda reports of officers and also reports of councilmen, and the way our agenda is worded regarding reports of councilmen is as follows. This portion of the agenda provides city council members an opportunity to provide information relating to other boards, commissions, committees to which the city council members have been appointed. My understanding of that agenda item is that it has a specific purpose of reporting on actions that maybe Sandbag took where a member of the council participated and is reporting back to the city on that action. This would not extend to a discussion or action on some other item that's within the normal jurisdiction of the city. But there's some ambiguity or leeway there, and ultimately if comments lead to extensive discussion or proposed action, that would probably get beyond what we should be doing under the Brown Act, and at some point I'm sure the mayor might turn to me and ask whether we can continue with this discussion or take action if some specific action is proposed. Whether or not particular comments go beyond what is contemplated by the agenda is something for the chair of the meeting to consider in the course of the meeting. I think all the members of the council have been familiar with these rules in the past, and I'd be happy to discuss any concerns privately in advance of the meeting if something is a concern. But those are kind of the basic rules.
But, Mr. City Attorney, my good colleague, Mr. Pesque, likes an opportunity every meeting to take some shots at people like myself, so we would have to have an agenda item for that if he didn't do it during council comments. And as long as I have an opportunity to respond, that's probably fair. As long as I can make a reasonable response, as long as I have a little opportunity to say something back, because there isn't always an opportunity, maybe, and I understand he has a feeling on the red light camera. I think he feels that somehow there's this diabolical plot to put the cameras back in after the election. And all I can say is I intend to not vote to put them back in. Now, people will have to wait and see what happens. If I'm back on the council, I pledge that I'm not going to vote to put them back in. But if he wants to say that he's sure he knows my mind that I will, how can I disagree with him? He knows my mind better than I do.
If I could specifically get back to your question again, I think there is some latitude with this item. I would have a little different interpretation than the city attorney. If he feels I'm totally off legal bounds, he will correct me, and he has my interpretation of reports of councilmen and reports from the public of non-agenda items. My philosophy is to give it as much latitude as anyone would have within any reasonable bound. Would it be more appropriate to have councilmen go down to the dais and talk about some issue from there? I don't know. There's lots of ways you could do it, but my general philosophy is I think council members should have as much latitude to express opinions on hopefully items related to the city that is feasible, and beyond that, it's up to each individual to make their decision when it's decision time, what's appropriate. So anyway, that's just a general comment.
Yeah, well,
Just a couple other points. One item I neglected on the public comment as well. As you mentioned, the issue with ties. There is one limitation on the public, and that is that comments may be limited by the mayor or the chairman of the meeting to items that are within the jurisdiction of the city or the redevelopment agency, where typically we don't cut people off if they stray into national politics or something unrelated to city business, but you may technically if it goes far afield. The other point I would make is that I think probably we do think more alike than differently as far as reports of officers, because again, that's a matter of interpretation, where if a comment is made to a council member by a member of the public and that report is made, that would probably be permissible under the Brown Act. It's only where there's extensive discussion and really debate leading to action being contemplated that the Brown Act would really come into play. So we need to be aware of that potential issue and at least consider that.
All right.
I appreciate
sorry.
I appreciate you taking the time here and making that clarification. I must say that I just was struck that when comments were made to the public, it seemed, and it was not just the people sitting here, but I felt that the comments were made to the listening audience, the watching audience, people who are watching this meeting on the television, and and there was the advice tantamount to the advice given to the public, and not to vote these two council people men back if they choose to run. I just needed that clarification, so I appreciate getting it. I just must say, as an observer, I really feel that kind of comment is best made not when one is sitting in one of those chairs. But thank you for taking the time and relating to that. Now, the other item that I wanted to pick up on was, as I said, a matter of correction. Now, I've heard Councilman, Mr. Popescu, say this history of this camera discussion, make this history, give this history several times, and I think I have been here at each of the times that there's been a conversation about the cameras. And I remember the first time back, I think you mentioned Councilman Popescu, it was in September, and I can remember Councilman Rigsby giving, I thought, just a very straightforward, good presentation on this whole matter of cameras and how they're being received, and you had various data from different sources and so on. It was just a very straightforward conversation, and frankly, I thought it was informative and helpful. Then it continued. And I don't think you, but I think Councilman Popescu then brought up the idea of taking that information and then taking action at the meeting, at that meeting. Now, obviously that action really needed information. There was no specific information on the number of tickets, the number of violations and the number of citations that had been handed out. There was just a lot of information that needed to, and also was it possible to break a contract, and what was the implication of that, and what was the ramification of that. And so it seemed like it was sensible to really have that action occur after that information had been gotten. And so that's what I heard quite candidly of other members in the council coming forward with. It wasn't that anybody was against or stonewalling, it was just that that information was needed. But now that whole thing is being retold, and it has been retold several times. But tonight, in the most forceful and frankly inaccurate way, to really then paint these two members as vis-a-vis Peterson and Ziprick as the ones who have opposed. And so what needs to happen is they need to be thrown out, in spite of the fact that Ziprick very specifically said in that conversation, and now again, that if he is reelected, he'll vote against it. But then the response was then, and we know the comments back and forth. I mean, I just don't understand the attitude. But what I do understand is the desire. And the desire is really a very unfortunate one. And that is to take data and twist it and shape it and declare it and bang away on it so that people in no uncertain terms will know that some people are for and they are the saviors and other people are against and they are the demons. That kind of Manichaean, that kind of good and evil picture is inaccurate, but it is just being hammered away at time after time. And I was surprised and disappointed to hear that that would happen again tonight. But thank you for the clarification that that kind of talk apparently can occur during this section, but frankly, a incorrect history, a revisionist telling of what has happened in this session should not occur, and as it occurs, it needs to be retaliated against every time. And I regret, Councilman Popescu, that you want to do that. But you know, I wasn't planning to come up here tonight, but when I heard you talk like that, I just don't think you should be able to get away with doing that. And I hope you won't. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the way I had understood we had ended up before was after the report came in, I understood that my colleague Wolvie was going to bring back, I thought in March, the red light camera issue for discussion, and he predicted that I would, how I would vote, but it never came back. And I've gone on the record a number of times that I think we should not renew the contract, but I did understand it was my colleague's position. He was going to bring the matter back for a further discussion and then a potential action. And that's the way I remember it being left. So I think just for the public who might be watching, that is what I understood was going to happen, and it hasn't happened yet.
Just a couple points of clarification. This issue is not new. The red light cameras have been here for 4 years, and I know Mr. Eigler is very upset when I speak up against other council members when they disagree with me, or he interprets certain words as if they're vicious. But I got to tell you, this week I spent a lot of time with a lot of residents, and everybody has different opinion. But one item that keeps coming back was, and of course some of these people may agree with me because some of them I know and some of them I don't. Actually, some of them I met for the first time. And they said, you know, we watch you on TV and we appreciate the fact that you actually express how we feel about certain things. So I know some people may interpret that as some sort of a personal attack. All I'm doing is attempting to, I believe, represent what the residents feel frustrated about. I don't come up here because I personally get hurt by the red light cameras. I come up here because people are pleading with me to do something about it. And as an elected official, I've got to do something about it. And I've sat in the same chair you have before I got on the council, and one of my biggest pet peeves was this line. I hear you, let's direct the staff and bring back a report. Let's direct the staff and bring back a report. And now I'm up here, and I think I have an opportunity to say, enough talk, enough staff reports. The people want something done, we get it done. Okay? The data has been very clear for a long time. These tickets have been issued for a very, very long time. People are very upset. So I think you have to understand that when I'm up here, I try to do my best to represent the constituents who come up to me. I don't decide on my own that I'm just going to deal with something. And one of the things that happens, and a perfect example of this is with the fire issue. You know, there's a lot of misinterpretation about what people read in the press. And just because Dr. Rigsby and myself brought up the issue about red light cameras, and the headline is, they might remove red light cameras. I've got constituents coming up to me, great job, you're getting rid of the cameras. And I'm like, no, we're not. We tried, but we couldn't. Now, I know everybody's going to have a different viewpoint about, I am going to wait a little longer, I want more data. I think it's very clear when someone comes up to you and say, please do something about it, you look into it, you look at the data, and you realize that, yes, there's no evidence that's really decreasing safety. Yes, there's evidence that people are maybe unfairly being ticketed for right-hand slow turns around on right red light turns on making a right hand. Then it's very clear that people are very upset, and we need to do something about it. I know that there's a great debate about what's it going to cost the city. I've looked into this, and I've talked to a great number of people. I happen to disagree with staff. I don't believe that it would cost the city that much to get out of the contract. We have a difference of opinion. Dr. Rigsby and myself, to paraphrase him, he said, I, as a city, may have to pay a little bit more money to save you, the resident, of having to pay extraordinary fees for what some consider a very minor violation. Sometimes we as a city may have to bear that burden for some of the mistakes we've made. And unfortunately that happens, but that's just part of life. This notion that I'm taking shots at them, it's no different than all of us disagreeing. It's part of politics. They interpret my view in a different way. I interpret their view in a different way. That's just part of the system. And I think that some people, I understand that just because we have a difference of opinion, somehow we cannot express that difference in public because it doesn't look like we're holding hands and getting along. I don't think we're here to get along. We're here to do the people's business. And sometimes the people's business requires that we become blunt and express exactly. And I don't believe in any way that I revise the history. I think that everything that I've stated was factual. I've looked very carefully at all the agenda items in the minutes as to what progressed, how the item kept continued and continued and continued. It started in September and it continued. So I think if anybody has any question as to whether anything that I've said wasn't truthful, I welcome the opportunity for you to take the time, look at they're online, the videos. There's lengthy discussions. You're going to have to stay up very late on this very issue. We discussed this issue over and over again. At the same time, when we had an opportunity to, when we settled a lawsuit, once that item was completed, it was brought back over and over and over again, even though the issue was completed. And the only people who were commenting was Mr. Peterson, Mr. Ziprick, claiming that, what was his involvement? And then Mr. Eigler and a number of people came in and jumped in. And I feel as there's an orchestrated effort to always come back and create some of these controversies when it should be fairly simple to do. There's an item, you discuss it, you make a motion on it, and you move on. But I guess that's part of politics, and I'm getting used to it.
Opie, why don't we put on the next agenda then a discussion of the red light camera? Because here's the problem. The people of this community have lots of interest in it. I think there is, from the people I've talked to, I've heard some comments that generally have felt it was prudent to let the contract run out and not expose the city to $500,000 in damages. But if you believe that's not accurate, why don't we put it on and have a discussion on that so the public can hear the discussion? It's not on the agenda tonight, so why don't we put it on next meeting?
Any council member has that right under our organization, and so you may choose to do that. I would like to truncate this discussion at this point. I've tried to at least give somewhat equal time, and let's move off of reports of councilmen. Let's finish up any other fires to be put out on the fire medical program. Hearing none, thank you, Chief Bender, for the report. Ask public's patience to bear with us. We are trying to make this work in a satisfactory manner, but I know there are some practical issues that we're still finishing, trying to work out the details. Unless there's any other reports of officers, and seeing none, I will adjourn the City Council meeting.
Redevelopment Agency is called to order. We had a workshop earlier. It was open to the public. Any of you could have attended, and some of you did, so we don't really need a report on that. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Are there any oral reports from the public on any non-agenda items? Saying none, we'll go to our item number 2, request to participate in storefront rebate program by Clark's Nutrition.
I'll move the item.
Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, it carries. CRA Bill R-2010-02, authorizing the purchase of 25384 Durango Loop. Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a property that is currently bank-owned, and the redevelopment agency has been negotiating with the bank for purchase of that property with the intention to retain the covenant and then sell it to an income-qualified buyer. We have made contact with the bank. We have made an offer. The asset manager has countered, and I'm asking for some guidance as to some leniency as what you'd like me to do as far as the counter offer. The property is currently listed for $138,800, and that is what she has countered. Of course, the agency has offered less in our initial go-around. They have agreed to use the title company that the agency usually uses. They have also asked that instead of the agency wiring a lump sum at the close, that we also make a good faith deposit. So I do need some guidance from the board. Perhaps we can adopt the resolution with some further guidance.
I'll second it with an amendment to it of giving our secretary further instructions and further negotiating this particular house and its price.
So that, to clarify, that's to give her latitude to negotiate the price.
Correct.
Is that okay with the motion? Okay, is there any discussion on that item? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't help but at least mention, kind of ties into our previous workshop on complying with state law, with affordable housing and so forth. I think we all feel individual home ownership is preferable, but this is a great illustration of the significant cost to get a unit. There's all kinds of staff time every time they sell. And that's a dilemma we have. Are we better off to use multifamily housing that are relatively more affordable, easier to administer, and it's just a dilemma we continue to wrestle with.
Any other comments? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, it carries. And there being no other items, we are adjourned.